A lot has been happening since my last video, and by a lot, I mean way too much. Enough that I had to compile these events into 2 videos, both of them leading up to another 3 or 4 expanding what motivates the right and its opposition. That's why it took almost all of the months of January to both research, script and edit everything. So what are these news? It seems that there was a conflict in the winning faction of the right-wing movement that could tear it apart. I think it's the best time as any to address it and make a self-check at the start of the year of where we are at and what we are aiming for to not neuter all progress before anything got started. Thankfully though, he has some promising victories, so there is no need to worry about that yet. Let's see for the controversy. I have addressed in the past that the right winning has historically, for the past couple of decades, been just stagnation, allowing time to normalize the past victories of the left and preparing the way for their next transgressions next time they're in power. To avoid that outcome, it's best to take stock, at least from time to time, of who we are, what we did wrong and where we are going. As such, let's not waste any more time, and it's time for me to welcome you for the videos preparing for the series Elements of Deracination, this video being Creating Understanding Episode 6, Never Forget Where You Are. I said that something could tear apart the winning right-wing movement. What is this about? Well, Elon Musk went on a campaign last month. I nearly said last week, but it took longer to write the script than I expected. He went on a campaign of support for H-1B visas, to an extreme degree. How extreme? Well, you can see it on screen. What caused this? He appointed an AI advisor with a visa, who he himself defending increasing these visas. But Musk also backed Trump. Trump is quite famous for this little thing called Make America Great Again, America First, and reducing migration. Musk, on the other hand, is a billionaire who wants to import more migrants to work for cheaper and to be pressured to keep working for him with their migration status in the balance. Ultimately, because the movement he backed and the president of the country is a nationalist, Musk is likely to back off.
My point was about the liberal legacy media astroturfing the concept that instead of a discussion on the topic, which we're having quite actively, that there was some sort of civil war within MAGA. Oh my god, the populists are ripping themselves apart. Can't you see that they're trying to astroturf that in order to attack the populist movement? Populism will, of necessity, not include limitless immigration. Trump is about to embark upon probably the biggest deportation campaign and biggest border wall building campaign in U.S. history. I'm assuming that he understands that this goes along with not trying to massively inflate the economy with foreign workers. Now, would Ramaswamy and Musk, of necessity, because, Musk is an immigrant, Ramaswamy is of, I believe, Indian origin or Bangladeshi, I can't remember, would they be on board with increasing H-1B visas? Yes, probably. Does this mean that Donald Trump is actually going to enact some sort of policy to massively inflate the number of H-1B visas? No, it doesn't. Or any other form of visas.
I do agree that it would be best to treat this whole controversy as an astroturf, and for it to blow over, which for the most part it mostly did, with the right being more in control than the tech right, eventually. This contradiction between Musk supporting and aligning himself with nationalists and support for migration sticks out so much that even a socialist like Bernie Sanders can accidentally be more correct than a notable figure claiming support for the right, which frankly is something only a libertarian could do. And speaking of things only libertarians could do, Musk also promoting someone claiming the Nazis were communists? Like, not even socialist, but full-blown communist, which...
Oh, well, right-wing means small government, left-wing means big government, which means that fascism and communism are the same thing, which is why they fought a brutal war against each other, and this makes sense to me. And it makes sense to him because he is a part of another group that we call retarded.
If there's one thing you can't expect Musk to do, even if you support some of the things he does, is for him to consistently have good takes. Anyway, returning to the migration controversy. There are also other potential explanations that are worth considering, especially given that on other issues of migration, Musk is more aligned with the nationalist side. Let's not deny that. However, there's also the chance that he's not fully in control of his account, having some intern occasionally in charge who felt personally targeted by the visa controversy.
The interesting part is that after a couple of days he changes his mind. And it's like, oh yeah, well actually the H-1B visas did reform. It's like, well, why did you spurg out then, Elon? Now here's my take, right? Here is my take. I think that it's not Elon tweeting from his account. And I don't think this is very controversial in the fact that, like, most people that are rich do not tweet from their own account. Like, they usually pay someone to do it, right? And I think he actually paid an intern to tweet. And all the intern has to do is, like, to show bullseye every now and then, repost something and go, wow. Like that's the job of the intern that Elon hired. But, like, the intern probably spurred out and took it personal when he saw the H-1B visa shit. The intern in charge of Elon X is probably an H-1B Indian. I think so as well, because he said that he got in the country with the H-1B visa, and it doesn't make other sense. It's like Elon didn't get into the country with an H-1B visa.
Now, the one thing I told myself, and I'm telling others, even if Musk will resurface with these kinds of takes, is that we should take the same attitude we had towards community notes. Twitter used to be dominated by leftists and Democrats supporting progressive and Silicon Valley narratives. There are Twitter files showing that before Musk bought Twitter. Conservative right-wing voices were deliberately suppressed, and there was a culture both formal and informal that this is a good thing. Part of the reason why blue checkmarks used to be mocked is because they turned from a verification of identity to a sort of status symbol for left-approved voices, which became more and more disconnected from reality. Well, with community notes, now people can request them and have disclaimers under contentious posts with sources to back up why what's said in the post is inaccurate. Good community posts. Have a gold star. Have another two. Anyway, community posts are something I and several other people who saw this coming always treated them like a temporary respite, which is not guaranteed to stay, but is welcome. A lot of things should be treated like that by the right-wingers. Makes you not grow complacent and take them for granted when some leftists will try to subvert them and take them away. In the case of community posts and the marketplace of ideas and all that, they're still around. But Musk now is changing Twitter policy to demote negativity. How much will this affect in the future remains to be seen. Some of the reasons for this move might be from personal attacks against him. These attacks got him for a day or two to change his account to look like a meme, which is a high level of cope. But I've only addressed Musk so far. The adult challenger, which was involved in this visa controversy, is Vivek Ramaswamy. To understand his role in this, we need to talk a bit about ethnic interests. Each culture developed its own way of approaching problems of culture, of behavior, of philosophy, and unless something has gone horribly wrong, they think that their own way of doing things is the best. So when you have an influx of people from a certain part of the world going to another part, then they believe that the way they approach that problem is the best way, and only people like them are in the best position to approach that issue. To show that, I have one example from Sticks, Hex and Hammer, and the bulk of the analysis was best done by the channel from Fangorn. If you like his content, please go subscribe to him and tell him I send you, because this might be the first time I had the chance to promote someone who is smaller than me. Hopefully, I will get many more chances in the future. So here go the promised clips.
I do have a little bit of a problem, and I did warn people about Vivek Ramaswamy on the issue of tiger parenting. He appears to be a proponent of the basic concept. Now, tiger parenting is basically it's Asian-style parenting, which makes sense since Ramaswamy is Indian. And the focus is mainly on academics and achievement and things like that. Now, I have a different approach in mind. My belief is that if you promulgate positive values in your child, they will tend to take initiative. You don't need to helicopter over them. You don't need to tiger around with them or anything like that. They will tend to gear themselves towards success anyway. That being said, tiger parenting is a bad idea, generally speaking. Should you have reasonable expectations of your child? Absolutely. Hold them to some standard. If they are achieving generally that standard and doing reasonably well, there's no reason for you to tiger around them. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. For example, I have a daughter. If she's passing her courses, if she's showing an interest in some sort of intellectual or skilled pursuits, that's fine. Do whatever you want. Once you're done with your homework and stuff like that, you shouldn't be expected to cram study for hours and hours and hours. Let a child be a child. Here's my problem. You only get to be young once. My childhood was, I hiked around in the woods. Now, was I learning while I was doing that? Absolutely. I was learning about different plants and mushrooms and all sorts of stuff like that. I was building a garden. I was learning about gardening and all of these other wonderful things. That's what I was geared towards. And it was wonderful. I had a great young adulthood / childhood. But when I was a little child, as long as I was passing the courses and so forth, I was not expected to constantly study, constantly do things that were productive. Sometimes you have time for leisure. Imagine a world of tiger parenting. The only thing that is important is that you succeed in life. Well, yeah, but I mean, you've succeeded. What are you supposed to use the money from your success for? There's no form of leisure to be had. It makes no sense. You're going to end up burned out by the time you're 30, probably.
People's subjective perception of their interests don't change based on whatever paperwork so happens to be in their possession. In-group preference or ethnic solidarity can and does oftentimes exist, and it exists to such a great extent as to be a significant piece of many countries' foreign policy. From India, for example, Narendra Modi advocates for Indian citizens of Britain and the USA to be ambassadors of their original homeland, India. He would not promote this policy unless he thought that many Indian expats still had ethnic solidarity, regardless of whether they so happen to be US citizens and not technically Indian citizens. In a very meaningful way, meaningful enough for Modi's policy on the matter, their ethnicity as Indians informs their attitudes and actions. Blood, after all, is thicker than water, and it's certainly thicker than a piece of paper. Even if we give Vivek his steel man, presuming in absence of evidence that these Indians do in fact provide a level of skill that US persons could not provide to scale, H-1Bs should only be acceptable as a stopgap until the US can catch up. We have an example of how this is handled in an actual real-life scenario with TSMC, where we genuinely can't do what they do, so we try to onshore the work and get our native capacity to standard so Americans don't have to rely on foreigners. This is not the implication of Vivek's tweet. From Vivek's tweet, one can only conclude that Indians are so much better, more studious and driven down to a man, that it will take an overhaul of the entire culture in order for the native population to achieve a comparable level of excellence. And that's his point of view, but that's not a temporary matter like the H-1B visas are supposed to address. Based on that, the H-1B seems to be a step for permanent immigration rather than a temporary stopgap for 6 years at most. And again, Vivek understands this perfectly well as it applies to other types of immigrants.
I don't blame the individual Haitians who came here. I'm not saying that they're bad people, because in that particular case, those weren't even people who broke the law in coming here. They came as part of a program called temporary protective status. Now, the operative word there is the first one, temporary.
just like Jesse Jackson for black people or Jorge Ramos for Latinos. This style of ethnic self-promotion is so toxic to the idea of America as a multi-ethnic project. Multi-ethnic nations are not easy to maintain, and it's essential that there's as little suspicion of favoritism as possible, a flaw for which, of course, Indians are notorious. If Vivek is any indication of the norm, Indians are culturally more comfortable with in-group preference than most Americans fully understand.
So safe third country means even if somebody's claiming to seek asylum from political persecution, we'll move them to another country that doesn't have to be the United States of America that they passed through, say Mexico, before actually coming here.
I can't help but feel like the tacit assumption supporting all of these instances of in-group preference from Vivek is that Hispanics are just lower and Indians are just higher. And that's the conundrum of in-group preference amongst migrant groups in general. A highly convenient premise for their ambition of acceptance in America, but one which they would never accept for their own homeland. And with the convenient escape hatch of racism, they've never even been seriously challenged to explore this objection until Anne challenged Vivek. But unfortunately, far from trying to minimize or assuage this concern or even address it in any satisfying way, Vivek seems all too eager to prove its legitimacy at every turn. For Vivek, America is an idea, perhaps even an idea which needs some tweaks to be made more Indian. But when it comes to Hispanics, suddenly America is a people again, threatened by this flood of migrants. The whole idea of a robust legal immigration system is that legal immigrants are those which would want to be in the U.S. and love it for what it is. They want to make themselves a part of it and not change it to be more like the country they left. That seems like the opposite of what Vivek is doing. He isn't even advocating for H-1B. He's advocating for unlimited immigration from India. Seriously, he's advocating to remove the cap from H-1Bs and then treat H-1Bs like a pathway to citizenship. This is a violation of the intent of the visa, and it's a violation for which he says, you're welcome, just like every second generation Mexican does because they brought America a chili pepper or whatever. Of course he thinks his ethnic group gives America something absolutely indispensable. It did, after all, give America him. Just like any other unassimilated immigrant line, he thinks the Indian way is the best, and he also happens to be an Indian. But there's already a whole country built on Indian values, and that country is India. Americans are not interested in the US becoming more like India. Americans are already hardworking and educated. Americans lead the way in R&D and innovation, and you know who we're doing better than? You guessed it, India.
The main problem then is that this attitude compounds with capitalist attitudes from Musk, from other billionaires, and it ends up in a collaboration between the migrant forces and the capital forces that the workers themselves, the native workers, are cast aside. They're seen as not as important because each other faction in this arrangement vies for its own interests. The reaction many right-wingers have is to have a complete overcorrection and go in the opposite direction while condemning all politicians which don't basically stop all migration at once instantly. This is partly the attitude towards Farage, which is sometimes fairly malign and sometimes unfairly, and you can see more of this on Harry and Gladiv's channel. What I want to bring attention to though is that this strategy is ineffective and it will backfire. For this, a good explanation can be found in the following clip.
This is another thing, and communists have a way of perverting the family unit. I remember one of the stories that genuinely horrified me, and this is when I first started my channel. It was about a girl, this was during the peak feminism, and it was about this girl, this daughter, which was very upset about the father. And I looked into her, I genuinely wanted to see what her story was. She was this rich, spoiled, middle-class kid. And she got through university, her dad paid for it. And then she started associating with a group of commies. So, they were LARPing about communism and all this shit. And meanwhile, her dad offered her a place of work at his business, gave her a car, Like, he was doing everything that a father should, you know? Like, he placed her on a road for independence. But she was a third-wave feminist. In other words, she had to be a cheeky little shit. Because you couldn't be a third-wave feminist without being a cheeky little shit. And she starts posting, you know, the whole stuff about America being a rape culture, systemic racism, and that the American flag is an evil symbol, and blah, blah, blah. Now, the thing is, like, her dad also happened to be a veteran. Like, he actually went and fought, and I don't know if he bled for the country. I think he may have gotten shot. But suffice to say, he was an actual veteran, right? Now, here's the thing. He basically said that he believes in free speech. And he's not going to hate his daughter for her things, but he wants to understand them. Like, why would you say that? And he wants to talk with her. Now, the interesting thing about third-wave feminists is that they had no debate. Like, absolutely no debate with anyone that's not a feminist. They called it no platform for bigots, no platform for fascists, that type of shit, right? So he tries to talk with his daughter. Do you know what his daughter does? Blocks him. And that's when the father lost his shit. And it's like, okay, you want to block me? That's fine. He took away the car, fired her, and said that she has a month to find another place to live. And all of this because of communists. Like, the communists poisoned the mind of this daughter. She had no reason to do this. She didn't change America, didn't change society, didn't fight for a noble cause or anything. But the communists turned her against the parents. And so, like, I'm very worried about the shit that's online. And I noticed that, you know, like, all of these rules that are supposed to protect people, it's like, oh, the company will protect it. No, I want to be the one that protects, because I'm the father, right? And so notice how there's no public discourse about how the parents should monitor what their kids do online. Let me tell you a little bit about politics. I'm going to lecture the Americans about politics. Let's say that I want to advocate for something. Like when you do politics, you need to just have a goal if you want to be successful, right? Like, let's say we're doing lobbying. And I want to accomplish something. What the fuck would I want? The Second Amendment in Romania. Okay? So, first of all, I need to know where we're at. Like, where is Romania when it comes to gun control? And the answer is that Romania is one of the most anti-gun nations on planet Earth. Like, we have a level of restriction on firearms that very few nations have. To the point where if you want to get a gun, you need to prove that your life is in danger. And then you can only get like a pea shooter. And you need to have a safe in your house. And you need to put your gun in one part of the safe and the magazine in another. Keep it always unloaded. Never carry it with you in public. And you have to allow the cops to come into your house whenever they want in order to see that your gun is in the safe. Okay. So we're at this level right here. Right? Like, this is where Romania is right now. Let's say I have a politician that says, you know what? Truck drivers should have guns. Why? Because it's a dangerous job, and there's been a lot of cases with truck drivers that got robbed, so it would be a good idea if truck drivers are allowed to carry. But the same guy doesn't like the Second Amendment. Like, he hates American culture. He's like, no, we should not have guns for everyone. Oh my God, no, absolutely not. Like, that would be horrible. I mean, look at what's happening in America, and he goes with the propaganda, right? I would support that guy. Why? Well, because that guy would take me like kind of like here, right? Like, by allowing truckers to have guns, he is starting to slowly normalize the concept that civilians in some circumstances can carry. And so if I support that guy and he gets what he wants, I am now at this level, right? And I have to make sure that we don't go back. So like my job now is to make sure that any person that would say, we need to take away the guns from the truck drivers, no. Like, that's ridiculous, right? But you have made the conception. You normalized it. And in the future, maybe there's another guy, and he says, We're going to allow truck drivers to have more powerful guns. Like, why do they have to have pea shooters? What if they want to have a shotgun? Blah, blah, blah. Now, this guy is going to take me over way here, right? Now, he's not still pro-Second Amendment. He's not saying that everyone... No, but, like, he is taking me a little bit further to my goal. And this is what the left has done with wokeness. This is how they're thinking. They're thinking long-term goal. They're thinking strategy. Like, this whole thing can be like a 20-year time span. It can be like a huge time before they actually get to achieve the goal. But, like, slowly, they're normalizing the concept, right? And all of a sudden, it doesn't look as ridiculous, because the moment you say, oh, let's have the ability for people to own guns like they do in Switzerland. Well, a lot of the voters will say, well, yeah, but like my dad is a truck driver. He has a gun. It's like he's responsible, blah, 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 right? What's happening with right wings in American politics? Should I even give names, or you guys know which content creators I'm talking about? Let's say they want to add guns in Romania, and we know where we're at. And they will be like, okay, we want Second Amendment, we want concealed carry, we want everything. Anything else that gives us less, go fuck yourself. You're not going to accomplish anything with this. It's not going to happen. No. Oh, this guy, he wants only truckers to have guns, but he doesn't want the Second Amendment. He can go fuck himself. We're not going to support this guy. Vote for the opposition. And so, this is one of the reasons the right-wingers keep losing. You literally cannot make politics this way. And this is the problem with puritanical thinking, right? Like, it's the same shit with puritanical thinking. Let's talk a little bit about puritanical thinking and why it's bad. In modern politics, especially in the United States, it's very difficult for you to be a radical. Like, most politicians, they have to make concessions. Even in the US, where it's a two-party system, they have to make concessions. Any type of politician that manages to win the presidency, he's got to form a coalition. And so, you got to start appealing to people. If you're a leftist, you got to start appealing to some unions, the school teachers, right? You got to appeal to the postal workers. You got to appeal to identity politics, right? Like, let's talk with the black leaders. Let's talk with this and that. So you're trying to create a coalition. You're trying to get as many people as you can on your side. This is what Donald Trump also did, right? Like, he talked with Elon Musk. He went to the libertarians and said that he's going to release Wolfric, commute his sentence. He's going to talk with RFK and give him a position in his government, and he's going to do this and this and that. So, like, you gotta make concessions. If you don't make concessions, like, let's assume, by some miracle, right? Let's say I'm born as an American, right? And I can run. And I actually managed to get the presidency, and I made absolutely no concessions whatsoever. My own party wouldn't support me. Like, it wouldn't just be the Democrats voting against me. There would be, like, people within the Republican Party not voting for me. And so, you cannot have modern politics. Like, we're talking about 2024, right? Like, you gotta know where you're at. We're not in the year 1800. We're in modern time. And you cannot have the presidency without making concessions. So what does making concessions actually look like? Well, see, this is one of the things. Like, I had the guy saying, if you're not with Jesus, you're not right-wing. Which is an interesting take, right? Like, it's an interesting way of thinking. So, like, if I'm not with Jesus, I'm not right-wing. When you vote, you don't just vote for the culture. You vote for the economy. You vote for policing crime. You vote for the international foreign policy. You vote for the taxes. You vote for, like, a lot of shit that may not even have to do anything with culture whatsoever. In fact, you may not even be a religious person. Hey, you may be an only fangirl, and you hate the fact that the government taxes you too much. Maybe you want to start your own business like Andrew Tate. And you can't do it because of the regulation. So, like, you vote right-wing because you hope that Elon Musk slashes the regulation. Now you have some chucklehead that says, no, you can't be right-wing because you're an only fangirl. Are you fucking mental? Okay, so basically you're telling me that if you're a Puritan, right? And you got Jesus in your family, you can move in a community that is filled with Jesus worshippers and you're doing your own shit, but you literally cannot sleep at night because you know that 5 states away there is this OnlyFans girl. Like that literally bothers you so fucking much. Like, I understand, if it's someone that is a mugger or a thief or something, like he creates crime in your neighborhood, like he actually affects the society you live in. Now, sure, like, everything affects society in some way, right? But, like, what is your tolerance level? Like, what are we talking about here? And the reality is, again, this is the Karen mindset. And every single time in America, every movement gets infested by Karens. The movement itself is being despised by the new generation. They live through the satanic panic or whatnot, and then they create a backlash, which is driven by spite, pettiness, and disgust. And so, if you, like, for example, right now, probably a lot of the puritanical mindset comes from the backlash to third feminism, which was like freeing the nipple, only fangirls, and now people are like, no. Right? Like, and they're going to create another backlash. I'm just giving this example. It's not like necessarily OnlyFans. It's just like, it's on the top of my head. Because this is what I was talking with someone on Twitter recently. Apparently, like, he can't handle the website. And I'm like, okay, don't watch it. To tell someone that, well, they can't be right-wing because it's like, okay, but maybe they're right-wing because they don't want to pay too many taxes. Did you think about that? No, they shouldn't vote. So you want them to vote Democrat? Yes. Wow. Okay, I mean...
Incrementalism is indeed a strategy which the right wing needs to appeal more to. And this is what I'm trying to direct you towards in this video. To know in what position you are and which kind of demands can you make. It's what I've tried to do with my earlier example with community notes and the various actions and patterns that Musk engaged in. When it comes to immigration, how could this incrementalism look like? I decided that will be the subject of my donor exclusive video. As such, I want to present to you how these donor exclusive videos work. The only platform which I currently have set up for payments is Entropy. It's very easy to log into it, you just need your YouTube account and you can pay me at this address. The procedure is the following. Entropy has a message function. I will make for each video a code number. In this case, E012 and so on. I will announce for which exclusive video this E-code relates. And if you send me a message with this E-code and an email address through which you can access YouTube, I will give access to that email to a private video of that exclusive video which you requested. If you're interested in making the video public for everyone to see, you can offer a donation of at least $10 in which you mention the code and that you want a public version of the video. And I will take $5 from that 10 plus 20% of everything above to put in a pool to unlock the video. The videos will be unlocked at $100 in this pool. I'm saying that everything above that $100 is at a lower rate because I'm more interested in the quantity of donors to have a more robust base than in having a couple of large donors. So remember, the E0 code will be for the exclusive video about incrementalism from open borders to ethno-nationalism and then to complete autarky. I will be making a timeline or a scheme about how to get from each stage to the next one and what I think it takes and the conditions that each stage will be in to transition between them. I'm placing it as E0 because, to be completely open, I haven't yet realized this video. During January I only worked on the scripts of Creating Understanding 6 and Elements of the Destination 0. Meaning this video the next one, which will also be part of Creating Understanding 6 and discuss other aspects of migration, and a series of 4 videos of what makes the right wing the right. I believe those are very important, so please come back to this channel when those are released to see what this is about. Every other exclusive video will be already prepared. It's in the script, I just didn't have time for E0 to be ready as well. I can begin working on E0 immediately if 5 people donate according to the method I described earlier. You'll be notified via email when the video is ready and you have been given access to it. I believe this is enough information for now. Let's see the rest of part 1 of Creating Understanding 6. There is a problem, a fundamental problem, of how the right approaches the topic of migration. The right looks at migration, finds some problem with the way we approach it, finds the truth about it in some way, and then it declares itself victorious because it won the argument. This is best illustrated in the following clip.
But basically, I think we've covered the majority of the issue. I think that my position at least is clear. I'm glad that the sort of nativists won the argument on this, because the thing is, the tech bros, I do understand their position, and they're not bad people, they're not ill-meaning people or anything like that, but they are wrong on this issue, and they're not thinking broadly and deeply enough about it. They're too narrowly focused on one particular subject, which is not great.
Sargon, Carl, nobody cares that you won the argument, and nobody cares because you're not in a position to implement it. You can win the argument all you want, but you're not the person in charge of the migration policies. That is the goal, not winning the argument. If I offered you the right to be correct on paper, and meanwhile I get infinity resources and control over the government, which one of us do you think will get what he wants about migration? I will. With the infinite resources and the control over the government, I will get my agenda implemented. While you're busy winning the argument, your friend Callum is being arrested on terrorist charges because his passport malfunctioned.
My interactions with the Russians have been pretty much the same as interaction with the British government, which is an interrogation to try and find out if I'm working for the other side, which is kind of funny. Like, you go and meet the Russians and they're suspicious that you might be working for the British, and on the other side, the British are now suspicious I'm working for the Russians, and meanwhile, I'm out here working for Greatest Zimbabwe and nobody knows. Now, a few people thought that this might have something to do with the trip to Afghanistan and meeting the Taliban there and interviewing them at the parade they had, which would have made sense, right? You know, terrorism police, you go meet the Taliban, you're British, so, you know, what are you doing? When I came back from Afghanistan, that was what I was expecting, to have to go and, you know, talk to someone and be like, yeah, I didn't join the jihad. Just letting you know. No, didn't care. Literally 0% interest in the trip to Afghanistan and the Taliban. Which, you know, if you're kind of terrorism police, seems like the sort of thing you'd be more interested in, not less, but that's how that went. Just not interested in that aspect of the whole thing. So after dealing with the last of the stamps in my passport, the conversation then went on to ask me my entire life story. So where I was born, what schools I went to, what I did for university. And then the conversation became more serious as it got into the far more serious and dangerous topic of my opinions. Yeah, what's your opinion on this? What's your opinion on that? So I was asked my opinion on Russia, which was pretty pointless. I mean, again, just go watch the channel. It's my opinion is go and have a look at Russia. It looks like that. That's it. It's not really opinion, more of just there's the facts. And then I was asked about the war in Ukraine and my opinion on their fight for freedom. And then finally, the main interesting questions being, what do I think about the UK? What do I think about the UK's policies, the West in general? And yeah, that's the ones where it just kind of gets weird as to why you ask me all that. I suppose the question is what to make of all this, and I think first and foremost, this is just a reminder to everyone who is a British citizen or not, when you're entering and exiting a British port of entry, you don't have much in the way of rights, fundamentally. Like, you can just pull this, and there's not really much you can do. Suck it up. So, keep that in mind. I mean, a few people joked that I should go over to France next time, and then come across on a dinghy, because then I won't be hassled. Given who is probably monitoring my activity, I have no comment on that suggestion. Although this is just a pretty good piece of advice, which is that if you're going to go through a port of entry, you don't actually have the right to your electronic devices. They could be seized like this, and keep that in mind. Might want to invest in a travel phone or something like that, so you can get screwed over if you're going through a British airport or port. I mean, it's just another thing to worry you when you're on holiday trying to relax, but it's what it is. A lot of people have the suspicion that this might have something to do with my political opinions, which wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. I mean, I wouldn't surprise any other British person either. In the UK, if people don't know, we arrest 3,000 people every single year, over 3,000, for offensive comments online. There's nothing criminal, you've just been offensive. You'd be offensive to people, that's a crime in the UK.
Have a sense of perspective. As long as the right is correct on paper and the left is in charge of the government, the right is going to continuously lose. That is what you should aim for. It is of little assurance that the right is correct about something. It is the right. It's its job to be in the right about politics. You need control over the legislature, over institutions. Some by getting your own people in charge, and some, for those who can afford, seeing the state of your enemy's institutions, getting inspired of them, and if you can, sabotaging them. Though that is more risky. The best you should do is be at the lowest subpar level that it technically passes, but it doesn't help your enemies. There are very few people who I believe will participate in that, but it is a possibility. And with this I'm ending part 1 of Creating Understanding 6. Part 2 will be more focused on Britain, on Nigel Farage, or on some other issues which went on recently which relate to migration. You will see when the time comes. Hopefully within a week. Though I'm not excluding a little bit less time than that. I have after all lost my momentum this January. Maybe I shouldn't make so many shorts if I don't have also scripted videos going along. So I'm eagerly awaiting for you to return for the next part. And until then, my motto for Creating Understanding is that I see you and have a nice week.